Okay, we are live. Looks like we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. How's everyone out there tonight? And I see Kathleen, our counter. Kathleen's just trying to adjust some sound issues while we're waiting.
Alrighty, this is as good as it's going to get.
Okay,
so we are not on YouTube. YouTube failed again. So it's just going to be Periscope and Facebook.
Well, that's where all the good people are. Tonight, anyway.
Don't say that. We're going to upload it to YouTube later.
I know. The poor, they want to be part of this. They do. They truly
We keep trying. We'll get it one of these days.
And Kathleen, what's going on with Child's Play here? I mean, what is that all about?
That is a charity. I thought since it's December, we could promote a charity during the pre-show. So they give toys to children's hospitals, and you can choose to donate just to them in general, or you can donate to a hospital in your area through them.
Oh, very nice. And that is childsplaycharity.org. You know, I played Santa Claus one time for a bunch of kids down in a hospital in a cancer ward. And they just loved throwing Santa to the floor and giving Santa tons of injections. And, that's
the world they know.
That's the world they know. Out came the little tiny, earbuds, pressure cuffs, you name it, whatever they could get a hold of. That was a lot of fun. Actually, that was a very long time ago, but it was a lot of fun.
If you're just donating to them several years ago, and I've just kept it up, and I figured, hey, why don't we promote them?
Why not? And there you have it right up there on the screen right now. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the BA Zone's live pre-show. We're going to be getting started in about 5 minutes. Tonight's topic is Hocus Pocus and the magic of focus groups. So stay tuned, whether you're a business analyst, want to be one, or just play one on TV. And be sure to tag your coworkers, friends, and everyone you know. And since it's 5 of, it is time for this week's pre-show trivia question, brought to you by Tinker. He's wearing basic black again, and Tinker had a haircut today, so he's actually much whiter than his little picture shows right now. And he's kind of all ready for the holidays. So this week's trivia question is, who was the child of a famous poet and English mathematician whom many historians consider the first programmer? So who was the child of a famous poet and English mathematician who many historians consider the first programmer? Ponder that, and we'll get back to you just before we go live with our show this evening. Actually, I'll do that in a few minutes because we actually have some nice information to go along with that. Kathleen's been hard at work with this. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes. Think hard if you're a BA or a programmer, or if you just are full of useless facts like us. We're great at dinner parties. We can always fill in the blanks because we all have all this sort of useless information to just bring up out of nowhere and have a conversation. Okay, only got a few minutes more. So I'll give you that information now. Have you pondered it? Have you done it long enough? I think we have. So the child of a famous poet and English mathematician who many historians consider the first programmer, the answer is Ada Lovelace, and you've got to love that name. Ada Lovelace was born in London in 1815 and was never close to her father, Lord Byron. And her mother and grandmother were dedicated to giving her a full education, which included mathematics. That's a great parent for you right there. And as an adult, she worked with mathematician Charles Babbage and wrote her own method for how a machine would calculate a sequence of natural numbers. So she was also a bit of a gambler. And she tried without much success to calculate wins at the racetrack. Don't we all want to do that? I used to love to go to the racetrack. Years ago, I used to work as a waitress, many, many moons ago. And I used to get out, I think it was around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and there was a racetrack fairly close to us. And we'd run down for, I think it might have been the 7th race and do a couple of races. Not that we ever bet like a lot of money or anything, but it was just exciting to watch the horse races. Haven't done that and I can't remember when, but being a bit of a gambler there, Ada Lovelace, first programmer. How about that? That's just a little bit of trivia for your next dinner party. When there's a lull in the conversation, you can bring up Ada Lovelace. Make sure you don't confuse her with any other Lovelaces, because that's a whole different kind of conversation. And if you're just joining us, welcome to the BA Zone's live pre-show. We're going to get started in just about a minute with our show tonight. Hocus Pocus and the magic of focus groups. So stay with us. Get comfortable. Relax. How are we doing on your end, Kathleen? Everything looking good?
I think we're pretty good.
Okay.
Trying to make sure that I'm getting at least most of the comments.
Good.
Oh.
Okay. Just got a few more seconds here.
Okay, and the reason we've got this little thing up for the people who are just joining us is because since it's December, we thought we would mention Child's Play, which is a charity that collects money and toys and brings them to children's hospitals. And so you can donate just money to them, or you can donate toys, and you can either say, put it where you think it's best, or you can specify a hospital near you that you want to donate to.
Yeah, it'll make you feel good. We got 5 seconds.
We could all use a little feel good.
We need a little feel good in our lives, right? So, as Ada Lovelace would say, let's roll the dice here. But a better bet for success would be to use focus groups to improve your product. We're ready to go. It is at the top of the hour. And hello and welcome to the BA Zone Live. Tonight we're going to talk about Hocus Pocus again and the magic of focus groups. Have you ever moderated or participated in a focus group? If so, enter yes or Y in the comments section, or just a no or an N just to let us know that you haven't. This will be the last session in our series titled 10 Techniques for Better Requirements and Elicitation, Gathering and Elicitation. And you can catch or rewatch all of the sessions in the series at periscope.tv, the BA Zone, or facebook.com, the BA Zone, or bazone.com, watch live, or YouTube, and just type in the BA Zone. And please be sure to share this session and invite anyone you think would find this information interesting. And before we kick things off, let's introduce ourselves. As always, I'm Marianne Morrison.
And I am Kathleen Sidett. And together we are the founders of the BA Zone. We put this together for our fellow BAs and anyone else out there who is working on requirements documentation. We're going to give you tips and techniques that work in the real world, not just theory.
There you go. So you've collected the data. Perhaps you've created a prototype. And now you need some, hopefully, honest feedback. You do need some feedback. And so how do you get that feedback? With a little hocus pocus and the magic focus groups. So let's start off as we normally do with giving you a definition of focus groups. Focus groups are interactive, guided discussions with a select, diverse group of people in order to obtain insights as to how an application, service, or concept is perceived, how they feel about something. And we can focus on what focus groups are not before we actually get into what focus groups are. A lot of times people will think that focus groups, you would sit down and you perform a task similar to a usability test. Focus groups are not usability tests. Usability tests are performed usually one-on-one, and they're more about learning how people use things or products. Whereas the focus groups are usually performed with a group of people, and it's a conversation back and forth, and it's more about understanding how the people feel about a product or their opinions about something. And it's sort of, meant to give you a wider range of how they feel about that particular product. And hang on just a second here. Having a little bit of a... Nope, I just lost the... One moment, please. Just vamp for a second there, Kathleen. I've lost that feed. It's always something when you're going live, but that's okay. I'll be right
It's full
with
of
you.
challenges.
It's full of challenges.
You see, that's why you invite your friends and neighbors, because even if the content may not be right up their alley, I'm sure the entertainment value is worth it for everyone.
Hold on just a second. It's coming. Okay. There we go. Okay. So where am I? Okay. So yeah. So it's really more or less about understanding people's feelings and opinions about something and not actually watching what they do or how they perform a particular task. And then Kathleen will move on with the pros while I clean this up.
So that's why tag teaming is so good. All right, let me roll along here. Okay, so let's start off with the pros of focus groups. So you're going to find that when you get a group of people together in a room and you start asking them questions and they start giving you answers, you're going to get data and insights that you probably wouldn't have gotten without the interaction that's found in a group. As people are talking, you're going to discover that they're using some sort of a shared common language to describe the experiences that they're having. And that's going to happen because that evolves naturally in any group of people who are working together, who even if they're working across different parts of a process, they start to develop their own lingo and their own language. And so by listening to them interact, you're going to get a load of data that you wouldn't have gotten any other way. Focus groups also bring out users' spontaneous reactions on ideas and also let you watch the group dynamics. And it also gives you insight usually into any organizational issues, pro or con. It also tends to bubble up sometimes things that, again, maybe had not been revealed during the other methods of investigation that you were doing. And so it's also a great way to find out what users think they want. Now, that's key, because all they can do is explain to you in their language, to the best of their ability, what it is they think they want. It's up to us to dig deeper and understand the true meaning and true needs behind those requests. So, like anything else in life, if there's a pro, there's got to be a con. So, the cons of a focus group would be that you can only assess what they're telling you. They're going to tell you and answer the questions to the best that they can. They may kind of think that they may try to give you the answers they think you want to hear, or the answers they think are going to make them look best. Or they may just assume things because it's just so ingrained in their day-to-day. So they may forget certain things, or they may imply relationships between steps that aren't really there. So you just need to listen to what they're saying, document everything, but don't take it as absolute 100% until you've done a lot more digging around. The other possible con of a focus group is that sometimes things get a little unruly. People tend to go off topic, particularly if, they're in a situation, where maybe they're feeling a little uncomfortable. It might feel more comfortable to spin off into sideline conversations, that type of thing. So you want it to be a comfortable situation, but you don't want it to be completely out of control. So you do need to make sure that if you're playing moderator, that you are managing the situation. You also want to keep an eye out for that one dominant person in the room who is going to try, consciously or unconsciously, to steer the conversation, override people, or even just be the only voice in the room. You want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk. Kind of mentioned before, so people may hold back their responses or try to guess and tell you what they think you want to hear. That's just human nature. If they're sitting there in front of you, sometimes they're going to be a little bit more reserved than maybe if they were doing it, in a survey where there's, less of a personal touch on it. And some of that comes also from the lack of anonymity, because they're sitting in a room with other people who are looking at them and hearing what they're saying. And so for some people, that may be a challenge. And you just want to make sure that you're making them comfortable, letting them know that it's a safe place to say whatever they want, and instruct everybody to share that thought. And, that this is an exchange of ideas and that there's no wrong. It's just answering the questions to the best of their ability. How you doing, Mary? You okay? Or should I keep going? Okay, I can't hear you. Hang on.
Okay.
See why. Okay. Are you good?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And just to add to that, I mean, if you're a business analyst and you are monitoring one of these focus groups, it's really good to get knowledgeable in group dynamics and how those group dynamics that Kathleen was just talking about can actually affect the data that you're collecting. So if you're going to do that, make sure you get some knowledge around that, or make sure you hire a trained moderator or a team, and make sure they follow a script, and that will help kind of hone some of those disparities in data collecting that you're going to come up with. And also, one thing to keep in mind with the cons of focus groups, they are a smaller number of people in these groups, and even no matter how diverse they are, they may or may not translate to the larger population. So you may have to do more than one. It's still a great start. The focus groups are fantastic for getting that feedback, but there are times when it may not translate necessarily up to the larger population if you've got a huge diverse group, if you're doing like a website, an outward facing website. So those are just some of the additional cons, but mitigation plans for everything, as we always say.
Right, and you want to, be careful. You're kind of walking a line here, because it's just as important to let them sometimes go a little off if you find that you're getting good information from it, or if it's triggering further discussion on the topic. So again, you kind of have to, in the moment, manage what's going on, and you want to make sure that you're just not cutting off what could be a doorway to good information down the road. But if they start just talking about whatever was on TV last night, that might not be so helpful.
Yeah, and being able to do that comes with experience. But you get the hang of it after you do it for quite a while. You want me to go over the methods, Kath, or do you want to take it? No. Sure. You want me to take it?
Yeah.
All righty. I'll just continue on. Some of the methods for focus groups are on site. That's the preferred method. Either you bring people to your site, you rent a site, or their location. Some of these can be, I've been in focus groups where we're behind the glass, and there's 15 or 20 people behind the glass. There's other ones that just you're in a room and you can videotape or just have the microphones on and record it. But I've been in both situations. You can do it online for times when you can't be on site or it's too expensive to be on site. And you can use tools like Skype or Zoom, where you can see and hear the participants, will also work for you. And of course, having questions, answers, and props, following a script with props, or if you have software that's in beta or a product that's in beta, for that approach will give you the best results. Someone who has something to look at, something to feel, and has a set of questions that they can answer. I mean, that's going to give you the best feedback regarding your product or your application, or a combination of any of the three. I'll just continue. How's that? Give you a break.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so focus groups, here's some tips. You want to keep the group size manageable, between 6 to 9 members at a time. How you select these participants depends on the intent of the focus group, but you're looking in general for a good representation of a larger group of people or a population. So if I think about, what we've done in the past, if you were to take a clinical application that has an internal clinician view and an external consumer facing view, it might be a website, a disease management protocol, et cetera. Selecting the participants for the internal view might be based on their role, their technical expertise, their environment, et cetera. Selecting the participants, on the other hand, for the consumer view might be based on, occupation, age, education level, gender, social class, et cetera. So there are ways that they can run through survey questions to pick the right types of people, so that they're sort of getting a group of like people, but they're diverse enough in their opinions to actually have a really good back and forth conversation regarding the product. You want to keep each session to 2 hours or less, just so that I've been part of focus groups where they've gone endlessly on and on with questions, and the questions are just slightly different approaches to the same answer, and it can get really frustrating. So you don't want it to go beyond, that 2 hour limit at the most. You want to have the moderator follow a script, because it keeps everyone on track, and it does make analysis easier later. And remember that the moderator's job is to facilitate, but not to participate in the discussion itself. So if you have to sit on your hands, which is kind of hard to do if you're taking notes, but you don't want to get involved with the discussion itself, unless it seems to be going off track, or to ask a particular question to move it along. But try not to get involved with the discussion. It'll kind of skew those results for you, and it may actually drive them to a certain conclusion that they might have not thought of themselves. So you don't want to do that. Have 1 or 2 observers to silently take notes, or to notice people's micro expressions. Some people say, I have a resting biatch face. That's a micro expression, because when I'm, my lips go down when I'm not smiling. But there are these tiny little twitches and eye rolls that you want to note down, and it's an emotional response to a particular question. And it does definitely help to have many, more than one person taking notes, because everybody sees different things, or are looking for different things. And if you set it up that way from the beginning, it's even more helpful. And you want to encourage conversation between participants during the session and on breaks. And the reason we say and on breaks is because most of these people that you get together, unless it's an internal application, but a lot of them aren't going to know each other if you're working on a larger project. And you want them to get to know each other enough that they feel comfortable having a conversation and discussion back and forth about the product or the application. So you kind of want to encourage that, that feeling of camaraderie and team. And those are just some of the tips for a successful focus group.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about note-taking, which is really the whole point of this. You're not just having this because you want to chat with people, you actually want to collect data. So if you're the one taking the notes, or if you have people taking notes, you want to tell them to listen and note these things. Interesting quotes. So if there's certain words or phrases that somebody says that sort of trigger something, or sound like they might lead to something new, you want to make sure that that gets in there. You want to make note of any follow-up questions that have organically come out of the conversation, because you might want to work those into your script. You want to make a note where the group is agreeing and where they're disagreeing. And, if it's sort of a split, then obviously you want to note that too. You want to make particular note of any time that you're seeing a disagreement across different teams. So if you've got a group of different people from different teams, and the two that are always agreeing are on the same team, and the rest of them are, on different teams, that might imply that there's either a communication gap or there's a gap in the process. So those are a good thing to keep an eye out for. You want to keep an eye open for the ideas and insights, so any kind of light bulb moments. Those usually happen as the conversation is bouncing back and forth between the focus group members. One person will say something, which will trigger somebody else, and before you know it, you've got a whole wealth of information that you didn't have before. And like Mary was saying, you want to pay close attention to the nonverbal. So if somebody is fidgeting, or if they're not paying attention or not making eye contact, you want to make note of those kind of things too, because if it's happening in response to a certain question or a certain discussion that's going on, there's probably a reason why they're uncomfortable with that, and you're going to probably want to dig a little bit deeper carefully to see what's going on there.
Okay. So we're down to the point where you've done these focus groups, and now you're reviewing the results. So immediately after you have a group session, you want to get the moderators and the observers together immediately to compare notes and observations and get them written down. So, what can be helpful in addition to a script and questions is if you quickly create some type of form that you can record the emotions or the responses with each question. So that just makes it easier to compare and analyze the data afterwards. It's handy to have a form to do that. And you want to do it while it's still fresh in everyone's minds, and they can explain why they wrote a particular note before everybody forgets about it. You want to also compare the results from other sessions. So you may have more than one particular session with different groups, and determining the number of sessions you need could depend on a lot of factors, such as, time, expense, how many particular population groups you have, et cetera. But in general, you want to have enough sessions to get the information you need. But when the feedback no longer provides additional insights or the responses seem repetitive, then you don't need to proceed with that group. And you may not need to proceed with another session depending on the intent of the focus group. So, and it usually happens within 2 to 3 sessions if you're going over the same material. And you don't really want to focus on the details of what each person said, what each person was doing at the time. You're really looking for patterns and differences, things that come up. So the whole process is to capture those insights and perceptions of a given population that you might not otherwise capture, as Kathleen was saying, with other techniques. So really look for patterns and differences to see how to improve your product or your application or your process.
You may as well keep going. This is the same.
Okay. We're just going to continue on then with the results and things you might want to consider when analyzing the focus group's activities. Again, what words are they using? What do they mean? Are there similarities between participants or different groups? What context was it in? What happened to trigger that particular response? These are all things you can capture on a form if you lay it out correctly. Consistency. Was the participant consistent throughout, or were they influenced by other group members? So this goes back to looking at those results and making sure your data is clean and not particularly sent off askew by one particular member in the group. Frequency. Again, did that person dominate the conversation? Was there someone who didn't get to speak because they're too shy? They need to be pulled out. You need to really focus when you're a moderator on those type of situations. What comments were made and how often were they made? What was the comment that was most often made? What comments occurred least? A lot of times when you're dealing with an application or software, what you think is important as either a product owner or a business analyst or a developer is not always what the consumer or the user of the application is concerned with. So it's those are those light bulb moments that Kathleen was talking about as well. And were there any comments you expected that didn't occur? Again, we're expecting certain things. Everybody's a little bit different, and they just may not occur. What is the level of intensity? What were the things that really mattered to people? What were they passionate about, happy about, angry about, wanted more information? All that emotion. What were the things that triggered them? What were they interested in? And specificity. How specific was someone's comment? How much detail did someone give when they were probed? And that is also a sign of a really good moderator, that continual probing to get down to that level of detail that you would need, and not just sort of someone saying, "Oh, I really like that." Okay. What did you like about it? What was about it? So you got to do the investigative probing with additional questions. So those are just some ways to review the results.
Lots and lots of detail there. So before we get to the last one, which I'm liable to go on for a bit, I do want to just remind you that you are welcome to come and join our mailing list. So if you go to thebazone.com/mailing list, no spaces, you can join our mailing list, and that way you'll be up to date with all the things that we're doing and the massive pile of things that we've got coming next year. We've got some really great plans for next year, and the best way for you to stay on top of them and to just stay up to date on our schedule and what shows we're doing is to get on the mailing list. And if you join the mailing list, by way of a thank you, we will send you our free survey guidelines ebook. So it's really simple. You can, leave anytime you want, but it's just the bazone.com/mailing list, and you can get all of those goodies and get all of the inside information, and maybe even join in on some stuff ahead of time, early adopter kind of stuff. So think about it. Go check it out. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let me get to the one that may or may not agree with everything, and she will jump in wherever she doesn't. When people find out that you're doing a focus group, they're going to start coming out of the woodwork, wanting to be there and involved and, running it and all kinds of things. This is a very bad idea. Management in particular, marketing and sales departments are notorious for this. They're going to insist that they absolutely have to be in the room, that they've got to, manage what's going on. And especially if you bring in outside users, they're going to want to be all over it. Your best plan of attack here is to just reassure them that you're going to share all of the information, that they're going to get all of the details, they're going to see everything that you get. If that doesn't work, and it doesn't all the time, then you may have to set up a microphone and or a camera with a microphone so that they can listen from a different room as far away from the focus group as you can get them. Now, there's a big downside to this. As we talked about before, sometimes people kind of hold back during a focus group. Maybe they don't feel free to speak. That number is going to increase exponentially when you tell them that you're recording them, whether it's just audio or it's video. But sometimes you're not going to have any choice, and all you can do is make sure that you manage that early on with them, because it is far better to have to manage that with your focus group participants than it would be to have people in the room who will just take the whole process off the rails. There's a reason why we tell you to script the focus group and why you want a moderator and why you want note takers. And that's because you usually need to do this more than once, and you want to make sure that the data you're getting is not contaminated. It's fine that, the people are giving you different information, or they're only talking about what they think the problem is, which may not be the problem. That's all fine. What you don't want is other people leading the witness or, stepping in and changing the direction that you were going in or spinning off into other topics. You want to keep the focus, hence the word. That's why they're called focus groups. And the same thing, honestly, you need to keep an eye on for your note takers too. Sometimes they kind of get caught up in things. So any observers, whether it's, people that you've sent into another room and they keep trying to storm the door, or the people that you've brought in to help you run the focus group, you want to make sure that the observers never interfere with the session. If there's something that they feel strongly needs to be addressed, they should make note of it, and at a natural break during the sessions, come to you quietly away from everybody else and let you know about it. But they should not be in the room. They don't. You want to make sure that their body language and eyes twitching, eye rolls, whatever, sighs, deep sighs, those are bad. You want to make sure all of that is. They need to be blank slates, taking notes or doing whatever task you've given them, but not interacting and interfering with your process. Okay, Mayor, go ahead. Anything you don't agree with there?
No, and you know what? You would think I would disagree, but I completely agree with this. And I'll tell you why. And there's a couple of examples. I mean, problems occur. I don't know why managers don't trust people. I don't know. I don't know why they don't. But the bigger issue is when you have someone who is extremely passionate about the application or product that they've either they own it, they feel like they own it, they feel like they've developed it or they've designed it. And when they get even behind a glass, and I've seen this happen in focus groups, they get behind that glass and they're listening to someone criticize it. Well, but some people just don't take criticism, even though it's constructive, very well. And they will immediately get very defensive. They will try to storm the door to say, well, what do you mean? Even on breaks, you've got to keep them away from participants because it can be very intimidating. And especially when you're dealing with an internal application, with managers and everybody gets a little nervous. And then the other thing, too, is when you have two opposing groups in that room. So someone who was for it and somebody who said, I told you this would work better. And see, so it can get very heated. So you definitely want to remove, I completely agree, remove any type of management or people who have had any type of input away. The moderators, like a facilitator, you're just there to ask the question. You're really not biased in any way, and you have to make sure that happens. Otherwise, your data is going to be completely useless from this focus group. So we agree.
Yeah. And it can totally shut down the people in the focus group. If they get any whiff of somebody disagreeing with what they said or laughing at them or anything, that's it. It's over. You're not going to get any more good information out of that session, and that's a waste of time. And it's rude. So, this is a big thing for me, and this is something I run into a lot. So it is another way to kind of take some of the sting out of, or take the concern out of, if people in the room are uncomfortable with being recorded, or either video or audio, to say to them, it's okay, this is not going to go outside of our building. We're just going to, do this so we make sure that we're representing what you said clearly. And, so there's ways to mitigate that concern. But for you, being able to provide either a live video feed or an after the fact recording, again, you do need to control it because you don't want some smartass taking it and throwing it on YouTube. But, in a controlled situation, you can let other people see it. And sometimes that will help control some of this stuff that goes on. It's a little frustrating because you're trying to get the data. That's what the point is. And all this just gets in the way of that.
Right. And to your point, Kathleen, with managers, the first, course of action is to say, listen, we're going to give you everything. So, it's all about setting expectations. So with management or people who were really passionate about whatever the product or the process was, ahead of time, tell them, look, this is going to be the layout of the results. We're going to give you, much the same way we do with surveys. We're going to give you the questions, the answers, the emotions, all of that data. And we're going to, roll it up into what we think might be, some recommendations or some analysis work. And then you're going to give them that data. You're going to give them all that hard data, and they can go through it as much as they like and make what they want of it. But, data is data. So, but you can just sort of mitigate that issue by telling them this is what we're going to explaining exactly. This is what you're going to get. And hopefully you don't have to lock the door and hang garlic and whatever to keep people away. Hopefully that works for you.
And hopefully the upside, maybe someday down the road soon, of the selfies is that people will get over the hang up of being on video or audio. one thing maybe, a few years ago, but as more and more people are playing with their devices, even my parents are on, Skype and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully some of that will help these processes too and make everybody more comfortable with being recorded, since we're really recorded 24/7 anyway.
Uh-oh, George Orwell, here we go.
Okay, so I think that is it. Let me just double check. I think that's yes. So, you can, am I on? Bring this up. You can always find us on Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. We're working on it. We will upload this, and we're going to get you live one of these days. I'm sure of it. So feel free. If you have any questions, if you have any questions now, feel free to throw them in. I'm not seeing anything right now. But if after the fact you're watching this on a replay and you want to reach out to us, you can always throw comments in on Facebook. If you're on Periscope, just go ahead and tweet at us, and we're more than happy to respond to you there. And YouTube, you can put in your comments there too. So don't be shy. Follow us everywhere. We try to put some different content, all the different things, just to keep it interesting for you.
Right.
All right, Mary, you got anything else for the good folks?
Well, we're going to be winging it next week. We've got a lot of holidays coming up. So this was, as I said, the last in our series for requirements gathering and elicitation techniques. And again, you can catch all of those on all those places Kathleen just talked about. And I think next week we're just going to come up with a little. I think what I'm going to do, and I haven't discussed this with Kathleen even yet, but I think next week.
Just to back up, so Mayor's going to do this alone next week because I've got to work out some of these technical issues and I need some time. So she's going to go solo. So she's only going to be on Facebook. So if you want to see Mayor going solo, you got to join us on Facebook. Go ahead, Mayor.
Join us on Facebook. And next week's topic will be when a BA is also the project manager. And, the tips for survival in that case, not everybody has a project management office. And, you may have a list of enhancements that people want a mile long. So we're just going to go over some of the ways that, you can manage that and all the stress that goes along with being a BA and a project manager and potentially a product owner. So, if the hat fits, and don't say that 3 times fast. But that's what we're going to be talking about next Tuesday at 9:00 Eastern Central Time. So we hope that you'll join me then. And Kathleen will be making cookies and handling technical issues. So I think that about wraps up our show for tonight. And we hope you join us again next week. And please remember to tag any of your friends, your family, coworkers, strangers on the train, the guy laying on your couch, anyone who will find this content helpful. And as always, we're here to help you own the zone of business analysis. So thanks for coming by and see you next time on the BA Zone Live. Kathleen, take us out.